Imagine getting a raise every year for the next decade. More money, better job titles, bigger paychecks. By all logic, you should be getting richer. But what if I told you that millions of people do exactly that and still end up financially stuck? Not because they're lazy, not because they make reckless decisions, but because they fall into a trap that feels exactly like success while it's happening. A trap so common that most people don't even realize they're inside it until years later. And by then, they've already traded higher income for higher expenses, bigger obligations, and less freedom. The strange part is that the trap gets stronger the more money you make. Every raise feels like progress. Every upgrade feels deserved. Every new expense feels small. Until one day you look around and realize you've spent years climbing a ladder only to discover it's leaning against the wrong wall. If you're tired of surface level money advice and want to understand the psychology behind wealth, hit subscribe. Because on this channel, we don't just talk about making money. We talk about the habits, decisions, and mindset that quietly build wealth over time. Because financial freedom isn't built overnight, it's built one decision at a time. And here at Capital Chalk, every dollar counts. Now here's the question. If earning more money is supposed to make people wealthier, why do so many high-income earners still feel trapped? Imagine two friends, Daniel and Michael. Both graduate from university in the same year. Both land decent jobs. Both start earning roughly the same income. At first, their financial lives look nearly identical. Then something interesting happens. Daniel keeps living much the same way he did before. Michael starts upgrading. Nothing outrageous. A nicer apartment, a newer car, a better phone, more dinners out, a few subscriptions, a holiday financed with monthly payments, the kinds of purchases people make when life finally starts going their way. And that's exactly why the trap is so powerful. Because almost nobody consciously chooses financial stress, they simply choose upgrades, one at a time. The problem is that every upgrade quietly becomes a commitment. The new car isn't a purchase, it's years of payments. The bigger house isn't an achievement, it's a larger monthly obligation. The luxury lifestyle doesn't arrive all at once. It arrives disguised as rewards, and eventually rewards become requirements. Psychologists have a name for this: hedonic adaptation. Humans are remarkably good at getting used to improvements. The dream car becomes just a car. The dream home becomes just a house. The expensive watch becomes something you barely notice. What felt extraordinary yesterday becomes normal tomorrow, which means happiness resets while spending continues. Most people believe wealth comes from earning more, but wealth is rarely determined by income alone. Wealth is created by the gap between what comes in and what goes out. That gap is where freedom lives. Imagine one person earns $60,000 and spends $55,000. Another earns $120,000 and spends $115,000. Both save the same amount, $5,000. One earns twice as much, yet neither is building wealth faster. The second person merely has a more expensive lifestyle. That's the uncomfortable math nobody celebrates. Society rewards visible success, not invisible wealth. People notice the car. Nobody notices the investment account. People admire the house. Nobody admires the emergency fund. People congratulate spending, rarely saving. This creates an ironic situation. Many people spend years chasing higher salaries only to use those salaries to buy things that require even higher salaries. The solution becomes the problem. Then modern finance enters the story. Buy now, pay later, zero deposit, easy installments, monthly payments. Historically, people saved before buying. Today, many people buy before saving. Future income gets spent before it arrives, and future you becomes responsible for today's excitement. The trouble is that future you eventually becomes present you. Suddenly, every month begins with obligations. Car payments, phone payments, streaming subscriptions, insurance, credit cards, personal loans, mortgages. The paycheck arrives and much of it already has somewhere to go. This is why some high-income earners feel trapped. They're not poor, they're committed. There's a difference. A person earning six figures can still feel financial pressure, not because income is low, but because freedom is low. And freedom is what wealth is really about. Not luxury, not status, not appearances. Freedom. The freedom to leave a job, the freedom to take a risk, the freedom to spend time differently, the freedom to say no. Now let's zoom out. Housing costs have risen, education costs have risen, insurance costs have risen, childcare costs have risen, Food costs have risen, utilities have risen. For many people, the cost of maintaining an ordinary life keeps moving upward. More income is often needed just to stand still. That's why so many people feel they're running faster but getting nowhere. Then comes the final layer of the salary trap: ownership. The true divide isn't between rich and poor. It's often between owners and consumers. Consumers exchange money for experiences and possessions. Owners exchange money for assets. Assets that generate income. Assets that grow. Assets that work while they sleep. Businesses, investments, dividend-paying stocks, real estate. Ownership creates leverage. Consumption creates dependency. Both can look similar in the short term, but over time they become very different stories. Imagine two people each have an extra $1,000 every month. One spends it upgrading lifestyle, the other invests it consistently. For years, there appears to be little difference. In fact, the spender may look more successful: better car, better clothes, better vacations. The investor appears boring. Then time begins doing its work. Compounding quietly takes over. The gap widens, then widens again. Eventually, one person owns assets producing income. The other owns expenses demanding income. The difference wasn't intelligence. The difference wasn't luck. It was direction. One used money to buy appearances. The other used money to buy ownership. And ownership changes everything. This is why the salary trap is so dangerous. Not because it destroys wealth overnight, because it delays wealth for years, sometimes decades. Every dollar spent isn't just money gone. It's also the future growth the dollar never had the chance to produce. Until one day someone looks back after 10 or 15 years and asks a difficult question: how did my income increase so much while my freedom barely changed? The answer is usually hidden in the gap between earning and spending, the gap between income and ownership, the gap between looking wealthy and becoming wealthy. Advertisements, social media, easy credit, and lifestyle expectations all encourage the same message: spend more, upgrade more, consume more. But wealth is usually built when people become owners, which leads us back to the original question. If every raise immediately creates a more expensive lifestyle, if higher income doesn't automatically create wealth, and if entire systems encourage consumption over ownership, then what exactly are most people climbing toward? A bigger paycheck or a bigger treadmill? Because the salary trap isn't really about salaries, it's about the moment income stops creating freedom and starts financing obligations. And once you see that distinction, it's difficult to unsee. The uncomfortable truth is that many people don't have an income problem. They have an ownership problem. They're earning, they're working, they're progressing, but they're not accumulating enough assets to make work optional. And perhaps that's the real question. Not how much money you make, but how much of your life your money actually owns. Because the goal was never a bigger salary. The goal was freedom. And those two things are not always the same. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to Capital Chalk for more insights on money, wealth, and financial freedom every week. Because the small decisions you make today shape the life you live tomorrow. And remember, every dollar counts.